Who's here early today?
Minutes.
2 minutes.
Who are we missing?
Robin.
Just
The astronauts, they splashed down.
Did they?
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Just a few minutes ago.
Follow me.
Caroline,
Yeah,
would you tell me, there's a person on here and the name is Chuck. Can you tell me?
Well, if you don't know Chuck.
No,
we're laughing because Chuck is a longtime friend of the Port Authority.
Okay, okay. Well, hi, Chuck.
Chuck, can you turn on your video and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm just listening.
Okay.
So Chuck has been, yes.
I love it. I love it. It's fantastic.
It's
Informed
neat.
citizen.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, all right. So Kathy, Chuck has assisted the city of Wabasha with the barge terminal project. But he's a longtime retired planner, right, Chuck? Were you also city administrator?
Oh, yes, both.
Okay, so he's held a variety of positions in local government and also has kind of a marine background, but now resides in Wabasha. So.
Oh, way to keep giving back, Chuck. Thank you.
Yeah, and I asked him to sit on a committee, but he said no.
I'm a little afraid of conflict issues.
We got street commission, you know.
I would be a terror on the planning commission, trust me. Hence, no way.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so we
Okay.
call the meeting to order. Call Wabasha Port Authority and Development Agency meeting to order for Tuesday, March 18. All present except Robin. Robin.
We'll check.
Dropped off. Is Robin?
Okay, there she is.
Oh, there she is. So we have a full
Pulling into
group.
the parking lot.
Guests online is Chuck Dillerud and Kathy Anderson, and present is the mayor as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Port Authority meeting minutes. Approval? Move for approval.
Put them all together. Consent.
Oh, let's do consent, sorry.
And I just wanted to
Kind of
note,
out of this.
Johnson and Schofield and Hills were added last minute.
Okay,
But that's just approving the finances on it. You've already approved the grants.
okay, so the consent agenda is the February 18, 2025 Port Authority meeting minutes, as well as the Port Authority financials for February. Motion to approve?
And so is it not showing up?
No, I don't have
Yes, it
it here,
isn't.
sorry.
Okay,
Don't pay attention. Johnson Schofield. Facade improvement program disbursement, as well as Hills facade improvement program disbursement. Those 4 items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Got a first, got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I did not look, I'm sorry. Are we all paid up on our revolving loans for February now?
Yeah, we're good. Anderson House is making payments again, and
Okay.
actually making a little more to get caught up, so
Very
we're in good shape.
New business livability page on a city website discussion.
Kathy, I'm gonna share my screen. You wanna walk us through the, this item?
Sure. I think what you had seen last month was our introduction to some changes, and we talked about a cost estimate that we got for $2,500 from Vision Design to kind of reinvent that particular tab on the site. And I really appreciate that you kind of put that to the side for a little bit. It gave me some time, because I had just gotten the quote that day, gave me some time to think And upon thinking about it, I was like, what don't we like about it? Maybe we could work with things. Chatted with Tyler. Tyler said we have $1,520 left from the Smith grant. You know, try not to make you go into any other financial resources. And so through some meetings through Vision and Design, I went back and forth with some emails and some online discussion. And we came to the conclusion that we could go black and white. We could get rid of the gray stagnant. We could add the photos. And they came back with a cost estimate of $1,000. And I had thought about, how do I get these photos? I haven't exactly gotten them from folks from any resources yet. How about if I introduce the idea of a photo contest? And so they were receptive to that because I've said, I'm no expert about how you would get drone footage, what it would need to look like, what the releases would look like, what kind of sizes you need, or PNGs between that and JPEGs. I'm not an expert on that. So they said they would give the parameters for a actual photo contest, and that maybe we, you know, go ahead and go live with the collages that we have and run the contest until, you know, we talked about maybe even June. So we'd have under the bridge photos and green grass and things like that. So they left me $500 for prizes. We don't even have to spend that much, but just so you know, there'd be that extra $500 for photo contest prizes. And what I noticed is that the whole city could benefit from that, because when you kind of look at the drone footage on the homepage, you know, you don't have the amphitheater showing yet. So it could help the entire site. So basically, I would really appreciate being able to move forward with the livability page using our former Smith dollars for the marketing. We were going to use that maybe for a brochure, but this livability opportunity came up thanks to Emily suggesting, you know, why don't we use $300 from the Blanded, and then it's just kind of morphed to this to get better and better and cheaper and cheaper. I think of the photo contest as like when people do a lighting contest in communities where they get the holiday lights and there's prizes and there's voting. If there's anything for parameters where a city has to be really careful about giving away prize money and things like that, you just let me know. But that's what I'd like to do, is accept this new cost estimate for $1,000 and hold a photo contest.
So I have one question, Kathy. So you say black and white, so the photos won't be black and white, will they?
No, but
Oh,
so the
okay.
city site is kind of unique, you know, because it is gray and blue. And so for vibrancy, we were looking at a more vibrant site. Yeah, I'm gonna close the door here for a second.
The guy that gets drone footage around Wabasha all the time, I mean, wouldn't he be able to get us?
Yeah, so-
Yeah. Wouldn't he be
I would
able to
say-
first for nothing?
Sherry Moyer, Magnus,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
few different people.
In addition to that, I think he's given us rights to his photos, and I could do that. I think he'd be willing to do it. We do have a contact, Kathy, who does drone footage, that in the past has just done it for free for us. So we could ask him that, but if I think the photo contest could still get you things other than drone footage. That was, people or.
Do you like the idea of possibly nixing the drone footage from the contest and just do a photo contest? Would that maybe be something? And you could also save a little bit money. You could do like 100, 75, and 50 and do 3 places. I'm really open to what you think might work.
And I have still photos and drones.
Yeah, we have, but we could exclude drone from the contest and then just use the drone footage that he's already given us
Yeah.
the right to use.
There's some artistic drone photographers out there that I think would be interested in a photo contest, whereas Jim's are a little bit more just like informative, like Doug Kine does it all the time. And he comes over the river and I think he's trying to get beautiful images. He would probably.
Carly, the chamber director, bought a drone too, so
Okay.
he'd probably be willing to help us out.
I always think of some of the folks that are younger than me, like Megan that is on Robin's team, and her husband and company, they were doing quite a bit of drone footage that I'd seen, and thought, well, maybe the contest might get some interesting things coming.
So, okay, first of all, do we like the idea of spending $1,000 on getting this page kind of refreshed?
Yes,
I mean, I think it needs to be refreshed.
So
No,
She took
just
it
to be clear,
2,500,
we're not
Just know
refreshing
it's
the
our
entire
livability
website,
page.
just the
Just that
livability.
livability.
yes, that
Okay.
tab.
section.
Can someone point to me where the livability tab is? Is it published already or?
While you're chatting, I'll bring it up from my emails. It's not live for you.
Okay. Can you share your screen, Kathy? I'll
Yep,
give you.
It'll just take me a minute. So you guys go ahead and continue to chat and I'll get it up for you.
But I think there's consensus on spending funding to change it. I think that was I might have missed the meeting where it was discussed, if that was the one.
I think it was the last meeting, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so there's that. Getting my head around a photo contest. If we include, how do we include drone
Yeah, how does a
footage?
drone compete with a still photo?
Right, or do we do
no, still two separate categories.
two separate categories, right? And just
Yeah.
kind of reduce the. Or
Why don't we just have one prize winner in each category, because they're gonna
and be
be
done with
thrilled.
it, right?
They're gonna be thrilled if their photos, like, we could just say, once you enter, even if you don't win, we can use your photos, right? And they're gonna be thrilled if your photos get selected and used anyway, I would say.
Photo credit, no.
Yeah, give them
That
photo credit,
right?
yeah. So
Where was this before on the Wabasha page?
I don't think we have one.
No.
Okay.
So would this be a new tab on the page?
It is going to be a new tab. The livability tab is brand new. I'm just taking a moment to find the link because these emails just jump together and get longer and longer. And then I'll share my screen. Did you give me permission to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me jump on. It's already looking better than it did. Okay. Let's see. I'll go to share my screen more.
I think I found it.
You got it.
I got
Looks
it.
like she's got it.
Kathy,
Yeah.
let's see
Can you
what,
see
yeah,
it?
we're looking at the same thing. Yep. So I can send the link out, but it's also easy to remember, wabasha.org/livability.
Okay, so this tab is brand new. It's kind of like, why would you want to live, work, and play in Wabasha? We know that people are looking at Wabasha online before they do anything else if they're not living from the area, and even folks coming back to the area go back. And we just did some rearranging, and they kept the blue heading, but they went as too black and white for as much as they could. And I'll just pop into an area. I'll just pop into housing here so you could learn more about housing. And then we've given them a host and menu of items. If you're looking to purchase or relocate, who are the realtors? It links what's senior housing, what apartment resources, tools. We talk about the marinas. We talk about resources for folks. So all of this is like, it's always kind of in my head or in links that we could think of. And then I brought Kathy Garrity in and I said, what's missing? And we brought it to watch and what's missing. And obviously we wanted to get more vibrant. So we've been working on this, and it's not going to go live till we do a little bit more work to it. And we want to refresh the photos. So totally whatever you guys think. You want me to go to another tab or anything?
Can you go to the business tab?
Yeah.
Sure.
Downtown.
Sure. We haven't unveiled it to you because it's not quite done, but Ooh, let's see. It's taken a little time to load, but I'm sure it's where I'm at. So how to start a business? Do you want business assistance? Do you, and then of course, you're going to go to the business assistance page, facade improvements, upcoming events. We didn't have to reinvent the whole world either. We just had to get things in order, get things linked up properly. You can see if you were a business and you wanted to know what kind of cable we had, who's our energy provider, things like that. So there's just quite a bit of
Information. Yeah.
we're just being very informational. Business assistance, you're going to go to like the facade and the revolving loan fund. Again, we'd just like to have more photos to be more vibrant. And if you don't like the blue for any reason, let me know. They're super flexible about what they'll do and not do. But I didn't want to ask you for $980. I just really didn't want to ask you for $980. I didn't want to get carried away here.
I think the blue looks great. I think it looks consistent with the rest of the webpage.
Yeah, that makes sense, right?
When we looked at it at Watch, it had no content, and
Right.
all it was the blue headers.
And we're like, yeah, that's
Now
nothing,
there's
but now
content.
it looks a lot better.
Yeah,
There's a
I
lot there.
appreciate that we had a little time to even think about it and just didn't jump on that $2,500.
Employee,
Cost
employers could use it, sending out for recruitment. I think it could come in handy.
So Kathy, they haven't yet begun work on that $1,000. What would the $1,000 pay for from what we're seeing right now?
So I got to tell you, they already started the work. I can tell because
Okay.
this used to be a big gray box, static picture. Nobody liked them. It was like we didn't even know to page down to see these silos. They've already started adding all the links that I've asked. So they must be pretty confident in what so
Okay.
they've done a lot of work since we began. I was surprised to see that they started.
I think content wise, it would be good to get input from a couple eyes, because I can see some things that I just need to update, but I know how to do that on the website. But I can see the need for maybe some more photos. One thought I had is to get the right photos. We might wanna. Cause like I see kind of like, we could use a better arts and culture kind of photo, so I don't know how to attract that.
So maybe in the photo contest, you tell them what kind of photos we're looking
The
at.
categories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
We use Vision Design on Main Street,
Yeah,
and every time I make a change, it's $30.
yeah, so you have to have maintenance of the website too.
Yeah.
yes.
I gotta
We spend about $1,200 a year on maintenance.
And
the
I gotta
staff-
tell you, we haven't had to spend a dime other than the $300 to date, and they've been just working above and beyond. So to date, everything you see from this tab has only cost you $300. And I can tell they haven't made all the changes because I just went into transportation and there's nothing there, but they are willing to do all those updates. And this is why we need photos, is because we didn't have enough.
Yes.
Okay,
I love
so,
this. I love the announcements, by the way. I don't know if you happen to notice that part about the paying taxes.
okay,
Got that.
so, just kind of the devil in the details about the photo contest, I think is the big part, right? That's not,
Yeah.
And
But I
I'm not
agree.
in a rush.
To have
I'm
more
not
eyes.
in a rush on that. My apologies. Go ahead.
I agree with Caroline to have more eyes look at it. You've got, the HPC, you've got the Arts Board, you've got Main Street, there's lots of groups that are going to be mentioned there, just to have it up to date and more eyes on the pictures too. Current.
Well, those pictures are just fillers right now.
Okay,
Those are not, that's why she's looking for
Okay.
photos from a photo
Sure.
contest.
But
That's
I
why we
have a-
haven't unveiled it. Yeah, it's why we haven't really unveiled it, because we're just really being critical. Like, and we haven't brought it to you yet because we're not to that point yet.
okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the other suggestion, Kathy, is when we market the photo, kind of looking for pictures of people in Wabasha, health and wellness in Wabasha, transportation in Wabasha, arts and culture, just to get that. But I think when I look at this, it seems
Just
like
like
there's certainly a need for still photos. And that drones would maybe be applicable to housing or something, but
So
or
to-
like Emily said, maybe some artistic views of the river related to like parks and recreation.
I think that's Bill's function here is they're like an infographic, right? So you, that's education. And then when you go to that page, you'll notice that it's very little dynamism on that next page. And so we looked at Viroqua in a watch committee, and they just have a band at the top so that when you get into those detailed pages, there's just this great video running at the top of the page.
Oh,
Yeah, it looks really nice.
It's really nice. It's just a really kind of like the homepage for the city. It just is alive.
Yeah, because, yeah,
So are we
Yeah.
saying you want a new drone video running on at the top?
I think what Kathy was saying is you might get one out of the contest that you like
Mhm.
and,
Right, that we could use as a banner.
Okay,
so we need a
then it
motion
seems
to,
like we would be asking for a drone video test, right?
Well, that's
Well, I
what she's
think we
saying, two
want,
different categories.
two different categories,
All right, I'm sorry, I'm slow to catch
250
up.
each or
I'm
something and be done.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, drone could show you where everything is kind of related spatial wise, because right now you look at a map, that doesn't tell you anything. You look at a picture that doesn't tell you where it's at, but if you could get a drone footage could tie in, say, okay, here's the
She's showing one of golf course, just.
yeah, the golf course is here, the
Did-
marinas are here,
Oh, okay.
downtown is here.
I thought the drone video that Chamber did in their marketing piece is pretty good too, if you cut out the interview part and just did the. Did Courtney film the drone part of that, or was it someone else?
I think the photographers do.
Okay,
Courtney does have a drone, so you can get similar. footage.
Well, I make the motion, we do the two categories of 250 each.
And 1,000,
We discussed.
1,000,
To approve the 1,000
to
to
approve the
upgrade.
1,000 for the upgrade as well, okay.
I'll second that.
So we have a first and second, any further discussion with respect to that? We'll need, Kathy, you need to come back and kind of provide us some details on your contest, but did you hear that? Kind of split still and drone,
And just do
250
one
each.
prize in
Yep,
each category.
250 each, and I'll bring that to the next meeting. They've kind of given me some parameters and how to work the contest, and I'll bring that to you next.
okay. Any further discussion with respect to it? Having a first and second, all in favor? Aye.
I,
Both same sign. Hearing none passes unanimously. Thank you. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen the Lynn Lake Bowl drone video. It's the best. Just Google Lynn Lake Bowl. Yeah, it goes through the whole place. It's the coolest. If anybody's been to Lynn Lake, it's kind of a famous old place. Anyway, that's it.
Novardo's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Next in line, determine tier 2 housing grant application and type of housing. All right,
all right, Kathy and I are kind of working on this one together. But Kathy is probably gonna write the grant if we wanna move forward. So the Minnesota Housing has released a grant opportunity that we sort of envision, maybe we could request some funding towards the cost of the sand. Is that what we were still thinking, Kathy, or also maybe the phase 2?
So there's engineering costs and there is the sand. And at first we started with just the sand, and we adjusted it so it wasn't well, anyways, we didn't think we should have the entire athletic field location restricted by any income. So this is just a fourth of what the sand might cost. And then secondly, if we wanted to add any more engineering costs, if they would qualify, we could put them in there. But this is just a fourth of what sand costs.
Yeah. And if we accept the funds, the housing definitely would have to be built. And built within a 4-year term is what I read. So I was reading 2029. Is that, so I found that in a PowerPoint. It wasn't obvious in the grant guide. And the other thing that's coming up is the project would be more competitive if you agreed to build affordable housing, which comes with income restrictions. I think it was 80% AMI for rent. There is the market rate option, which I liked, that is the same kind of program as we just went through, where you kind of prove that market rate rental in your community meets a workforce need, but we did just kind of do that. So I think the only thing that makes me nervous is that we don't have like plans or specs or really know for sure what's gonna happen there. They did say that this grant would come out every year. I also kind of got a sense of we could kind of proceed and then pull,
That's what I was
back
just
out
gonna say.
later. But I think once we sign the grant agreement, we would kind of be like, there's no turning back, I guess, or once we expended the funds, otherwise we don't owe the money back, so.
Talking multi-unit housing.
Yes. So Kathy and I were just trying to get creative on, or Kathy in particular, how do we cover some of these extra costs that are coming up? I don't know how competitive covering the cost of the phase 2 would be. But I think initially we're just thinking fill, because we'd be further along in the project by the time we would need the funding to fill the site.
And every time I start to think about things a little bit longer, what we did is we took the, picture of what you kind of see of the highway realignment and said, okay, there's probably 4 development areas for sure that are at least pictured out for different outlots that could be developed for housing. What if a fourth of it was just at the 8115 AMI? We have a letter of support from Three Rivers that they would like to pursue a large area with us, but we don't have a project. And then as I started thinking about the reason that we were going this way is that we get 15 more points, we become more highly competitive, but we could maybe even ask for more and just say 3/4 is going to be workforce, but that kind of restricts us if somebody wanted to come in and be more luxurious. So if you want to say half is workforce and half is, or 1/4 is restricted to 8115 area median income. But we do have some scenarios we could play with. But if the board were to prefer that we didn't pursue the fill cost, at the cost of having one part of it be income restricted to 8115. And by the way, those numbers are about $90,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
so-
most of the people,
The rent.
most of the residents in Wabasha who rent would qualify.
Right.
So when you say cost of fill, are we just talking about haul cost?
Yeah.
Or are we taking
Yeah,
anything?
haul costs.
Well, yeah, theoretically, whatever we would need at the time, like, obviously, if we can get sand there for free, we would just be trying to cover the cost to place the fill. But we would just describe it in the application as
Yeah.
fill cost.
There's a lot of moving of fill and compaction of fill.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of time, yeah.
And just to get into definitions a little more, affordable in this context means we get 15 extra points on the grant application. It means you income restrict the households. They can't make more than X, and that's what Three Rivers has expertise in it. And then, of course, we're very familiar with market rate workforce, which means we spent a lot of time just explaining that market rate here is affordable
And
but
what
we
did,
lose 15.
and what did you
points.
just say, Kathy? That income would be, have to be less than,
90,000.
yeah, less than 90,000.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that number's
else?
gonna vary and keep going up each year. But right now, I would say like a two-person household is making 78,000 in 2024 was the number. And that was 80% AMI.
And what about a one-person household? Because obviously, we're talking about the one adult.
Yeah, I guess I can look for that HUD certificate. I usually have it up, so hang on a second.
What's AMI again?
Just a median income.
Yeah.
So one thing I said to Kathy is whatever the group recommends, I would say I still wanna bring this ahead to council, cause they own the land, they'll zone the land, and this application, I listened to the webinar, prefers it's the city that's the applicant. So the goal is just to provide a recommendation. I put that to council and then they can decide. I think one thing that gives me pause is we got just so much negative impact about even talking about affordable or low income and, you know, so, but.
So would these be rentals or condos?
Rentals.
These would be rentals.
Yeah, well, I guess we don't know, we have to find the developer, but if it's Three Rivers, they would be rentals. The other thing that was a little bit concerning talking to Three Rivers is they explained to us to be competitive and do projects. They need to have homeless units set aside right now with the incentive program offered from the state, and that was very difficult to do in Lake City. However, I do want to follow up with her and say, is that still something, because that sounded extremely challenging when we met with her, so.
And then
Basically,
anybody that went to La Crosse would be very familiar with an income restricted apartment that we saw. And what they did is they decided to have an age limit on it. So it was more for their 55 and older community.
Yes.
And that's where they decided to keep the income restricted. So whether it was Three Rivers or any developer that came in, they could choose maybe an age type of thing, and that kept it at the 80% AMI. So we aren't saying this deal is with Three Rivers. We're not saying, but we would stay. Yeah, it would stay a fourth with a fourth of it. We would be committing to making sure that that part of the development was within affordable housing. And we don't know if it would be disabilities.
The state is defining that as meeting income restrictions. Yeah.
With the city as applicant or preferred applicant, or must be the applicant?
No, preferred.
Preferred. Do you have to have your developer partner identified?
Kathy,
I'm
did
sure
you
it's
see
a
that
starter application.
it said that you had identified the developer partner? She has a letter of support from Three Rivers already, saying in general terms, they'd be interested. So.
And I would use that letter of support as evidence, but you, of course, would be putting out requests for qualified developers. And so everyone is going to have to compete. Just because someone gives us a letter doesn't mean that they get any particular piece of land.
I think if we wrote it, we would just need to be honest. We don't have someone selected at this point, but our intention would be to put it out there.
So how competitive would we be given the current status of that project?
We don't know the answer to that. We don't know. I mean, right now, this is a brand new grant. This is first year. The legislature gave a lot of money because we had that complete surplus, and they gave a lot to Minnesota Housing. And so they came up with two programs, this tier 2 and then an infrastructure program. And both of them are brand new. We know that there are people out there that are going to apply because they need infrastructure to keep going. It might be because they're just putting in some infill lots. They need to get their infrastructure there. We never know really who's going to be submitting applications. And then your past question was that it's $55,250 today if you were a one person and you needed to go into an 80% AMI. It's $55,200. And that's 2024. The 2025 hasn't been published yet. It usually comes out in May.
So their scoring criteria is commitments to affordable and workforce housing. So again, if you commit to using the program funds for affordable housing for low-income households, which they reference as 80% and below, it's 15 points. If you've taken local policy actions to encourage affordable housing, workforce housing, and market rate housing, we'll have to just think about that. And then it does say project and program readiness, proposals to create new or expanding existing programs, projects, 15 points.
So that's where you're having identified a partner would come into play. You know, the more ready you are to go.
Yeah. Scoring community need. I don't know how they'll figure this out. Maybe they have a formula, number of low-income households is a share of all households. They must have a formula.
Yeah,
Well,
Looking at cost burden households, community impact, opportunities, needs and challenges. They're gonna rank you on, do we understand our community? Applicant includes people from communities most impacted in project design and our plans to affirmatively market to people from communities most impacted. Blah, 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 collaboration.
Can you just back up a little bit, there's no
Yeah.
goods and services? That very last line.
Good, okay. I don't even know
Most
what,
impacted to deliver housing, goods and services development, right?
I don't even know.
Like access, like the way the lacrosse project pointed out, that now people can walk to the grocery store, they don't have
Okay,
to be vehicle, they don't have to be vehicle dependent,
yeah, we
That's a
could
big part
probably
of that.
talk about that, yeah.
big part of that development.
Yeah, seems like also a lot of work for Kathy to put it together, but.
so does this group think that we're,
I'm
We're there,
totally
like-
willing to try for $460,000. I'd totally be willing to put the few days together just to make the application. You can always say no if we got it, but I think Caroline's point is so good that, you know, it's really the council also should be weighing in on whether or not a fourth of the project would want to be for people that are 80% AMI.
I am personally 100% of it, but the last housing experience was tough.
So
So, yeah.
if we did the affordable housing section for 55 and over, it seems like it would be an ideal situation to separate what we have going on in our affordable housing now, you know, up at Maple Grove Apartments, where we have these elderly people living with the,
right,
Truly economically distressed.
exactly. I mean, we could have some separation and still provide places for both.
and your watch committee has identified that we need 55 and over.
Absolutely.
So I guess we look at it at that angle, if we could put an age restriction.
Kind of up to the developer, but that would be.
Yeah.
But if we told the developer that's what we were
That's
looking
our-
for,
that would be
right?
our
because
Preference.
I mean,
Yeah,
if it still qualifies to get the extra 15 points and still meets a need that we have, and it could solve another
Could
problem.
we tell the state that, again, if council's in favor of it, we prioritize a developer desiring to do affordable housing in our RFQ process, but not necessarily commit either way and see what they do for us with points, so we don't, like, in case we're in a situation that, you know, or,
I don't know how strong a case that is that you're.
okay.
you're-
So I just have,
Did you have Riverside distribution the plan in the old athletic field? Is that pat down?
see, that's where I was going right there, Craig. What's 25% of that, right? And what is 25% of what we'll have ultimately for buildable,
Right.
right? We might end up with not much.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 acres at the most, right?
Yeah, right.
16 acres total, right?
We got a highway running through, we've got all that infrastructure that goes in.
You were gonna have commercial at
We're
one
looking
point.
at commercial too.
Yeah, it's gonna be mixed use, right? That's
Do you want to
plan.
show that
Yeah.
picture, Caroline? Of
I gotta
what-
find it, the one that Brian did was good, but where is it, showing us did we review it at a former, previous court meeting?
I don't remember.
It was,
Yeah,
Oh, I
was.
did have it. I did have it at the previous port meeting, on that description where I showed the dump and I showed the project area. So it was in the last, it was in my,
Director's
report. It was in my report.
Does anybody feel this might be a little bit premature with all the up in the air with the highway, because the trunk highway reroute has to be done first for infrastructure, you know, the water utility stuff, and that is so up in the air right now as far as the final push. This just feels premature to me to be.
But I think
Because how long, if you get this grant, how long do you keep it before you have to lose it?
4
Like
years.
4 years.
So 4 years, if we get it,
If we don't have it by.
we're not gonna, this is not gonna be done in 4 years, the reroute,
Reroute is 28, right?
maybe. It's a-
We have to get the, we have to do our
Yeah.
project area. We don't have to build a house. We have to get that, what we said we would do, which is the fill to prepare for a development.
Not have the houses built, just have to have what we're asking for the money for. to
Yeah,
have
but
the
if you're gonna
sand.
put a bunch of sand in, then without the infrastructure, then you gotta dig up the sand again to put the infrastructure, is that what we're gonna, is that?
Why would you have to
logical?
dig up the sand?
To put infrastructure in for housing.
We gotta get it up to grade first, no matter what.
Of course, but I mean, they're gonna be buried
I guess-
under the sand, right?
I think what Kathy's point was, and
I just think.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Kathy, but I think she said it's $460,000. It's worth spending a couple of days to put an application together and see what they say. And then if they approve it and 4 years comes by and we can't use it, we lose it. We don't. I mean, we don't get fined or. Right?
No, and Brian, I don't wanna, if you would expand on this, Caroline, but Brian Mom has told us that we kind of have to set up areas with fill and infrastructure, and we should be doing it now while the highway project is being done. Is that correct, Caroline?
And it's yet another reason to get our legislators on board.
Yeah,
We
correct.
keep putting
That
this
we have
together.
this in line.
It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? We gotta
Yeah.
get something to get something started.
It's a pressure point.
Yes.
If we were to get all the bond money, we could give other stuff back that has income restrictions. We're just on a deadline of April 24th. If you hear that you get the bonding money and you get the $2 million and you just keep going, we wouldn't even use this.
Hmm.
I appreciate what you're saying, Jeff, and I was kind of thinking that same path, but the truth of the matter is if we make this application, I mean, part of what we've asked Kathy to do is to search these things out and see about executing these kinds of things. Is that another talking point for us at the legislature as we go forward?
Yeah.
You know, and if we lose it, we lose it. I mean, I'm kind of leaning we should do it.
I agree.
But we could look at age restrictions or we could look at whatever.
Down the
to
road,
make it- To make it match what Watch figured out we needed as priorities. We've already satisfied one part of that. Having some kind of an age restricted, income restricted property makes a lot of sense
Mhm.
for our aging population here and who's moving in, moving out.
I think
So-
Watch can develop the narrative, which is the truth, which is that Wabasha as a community, our housing authority, et cetera, has committed to the luxury housing. We have the luxury condo housing. That was a commitment to that market. There was a commitment to family, which was income restricted, which was now market rate, but committed to families in Eagles Basin. Now we did this workforce rental opportunity, and it only makes sense to at some point address all the people that need rental at 80% AMI, because it's like a bunch of our workforce, so,
Exactly.
or just our population, seniors included, so
Yeah,
I don't think that's a hard
That
sell.
low income or adjusted income or whatever scares people, but it's like, the fact of the matter is we're talking about our teachers and many of the people at the hospital.
Section
Yeah, we're not
8.
talking about Section 8 housing.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's
And
what
people
people,
aren't familiar with all these tools that are coming online to make housing more affordable, and so they only have one version of
right.
affordable housing in their
Right.
mind, and so it's just, the community just needs to be given the
Education.
examples that are around us,
Yeah.
and yeah, we just,
Exactly.
we gotta tell that story.
so we just need a motion to provide a positive. Right.
Yeah, I
Positive.
guess one question I have for the group is, it's points and that's important, but if we if we go the least restricted option of market rate, we can always be more restrictive down the line. My only
Yeah.
concern is there's a lot of talk about affordability, so it will be a stronger message if we commit to the income restrictions, but I think for flexibility, if we describe, you know, I don't know, that's my
You
own.
know, what we tried this year,
With assuming council present with the 80%
and
restrictions.
go with that, and if we don't, then we know we maybe need to readjust next year.
That's what I would do.
And I mean, we don't know what next year, I mean, they talk about this gonna be available, we don't.
Wait, you're
Yeah.
saying do affordable with income?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
See what council says.
yeah, okay,
And I think
Do we-
it's important when you present it to them that you talk about the fact that we could be restrictive to like 55 and over. So we could be looking for a place for our aging people to live. They can't afford those expensive apartments, all of them, right? I mean, they have to have a place.
And didn't the housing survey point out all the different needs we had?
Yes,
Yeah, this is-
that's
I mean, this
exactly
kinda
what
fits
is,
right in.
this is at that high, this
Yeah,
is
so
at
you're
the top.
connecting, you're filling up, check.
Checking the boxes. you know.
Of needs.
Do we need a motion on this? Or do we need a vote, or do we need it for a recommendation?
one thing we can tell council that if we are willing to do the income restrictions, I think it opens us up for more stacking of opportunities. Because that taxing housing trust fund that we're talking about, if you wanna make a tax contribution, that you must be 80% AMI as well. So, sorry,
Head around that, that's okay.
So,
Yeah.
Should we make a,
yeah, so I will make a motion that someone here takes this to the city council and says that as a port, we're in favor of Kathy moving forward with making this application with their support.
got a first, got a second,
Second.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Pull same sign, here you go.
at 80%
Yeah.
CMI, okay.
Who was the second on that? I missed it. Thank you.
Mr. Woodley. Chairman of Port should pursue Wabasha County Tax Fund, County Trust Fund application.
So this was similar, but they needed us to spend the money
June 27th.
by June 2027. I clarified in an email and I didn't get a response. If it's just expending the money, that's no problem. If the housing needs to be built by June 2027, we've got an issue, so. But that required the 80% CMI and it's a loan that must be paid back. So Kathy was looking at this opportunity for, covering the cost of our phase 2, which I thought was a great idea. I just, if it has to be that the housing gets built by then. And then again, it kind of got weird because the phase 2 is the whole site. So I don't know if that means then that the quarter that she was mentioning has to be in the specific area or it, you know, those are probably nuanced questions that Wabasha County didn't think about, but.
And we just projected a $70,000 application at 0% interest deferred. So that we could pay it back to the city and to the or so we could pay back the county. Within maybe 7 years using some TIF money. But right now it would just give us the flexibility to go ahead with the boring and with the phase 2. So the $70,000 that Bolton and Mink thought they needed. And it just gave you guys a way to not have to take it out of any funding, 0% interest. The project application is written that there's a section that will be affordable, potentially, but affordable at 80% AMI or 115 AMI. No promises, just one section, and that's just part of the project area. So we kind of kept it, I kept it very vague because they haven't said that it had to be pinpointed. It's a very, Caroline has a copy of the application to review it. It's due March 21st. And basically, you can say no to anything. So if they come back and say, you got to make the whole entire area that way, I'm pretty sure you'd say no, and you'd find a different way to fund the borings and the phase 2.
Also, we couldn't commit that the housing gets built by June twenty
Yeah,
twenty-seven.
there's no way that's not possible.
Caroline, I don't think we can present this to, you can present it to council if you are awarded the funds, but the application's due March 21st. So it's just days to get it in.
Yeah.
So you'd have to say,
So it
no,
says-
thank you.
Great. Hello, great to hear. Along with income requirements, I would reiterate the importance of the timeline with projects needing to be completed by the end of 2027 for this funding. And then I asked, does that mean the housing or just
Just
the
the money, the
expenditure?
boring and the money that we're,
I don't know. Yeah,
yeah.
that's important. But if it's just the boring, we'll have that done. So he didn't get back to me with that answer.
That's a key question.
Yeah. So I think it sounds like I'm less concerned about this one because it's pretty small. So, yeah, I think, Kathy, I guess, yeah, the question is, should Kathy submit for this as long as we don't have to have the housing built by 2027?
So the rub is, I don't wanna take this money from, commit it from somebody else, because we're not gonna be ready.
Well, yeah, but if they say that whole housing has to be done, we don't apply, for
We
sure.
don't
But I think Emily's question was, if they say we don't have to have the housing built, correct?
Yeah. Mhm.
Thoughts?
They look very similar to each other as far as how the applications are tiered, so I mean, if that is a qualifier that we don't have that deadline, I see them being good to do together.
Yeah,
So-
30% interest is nice.
And we can identify the same section of, we don't need to say now we have 50% of that development as income. We don't have to do that, right?
I would think so.
No.
I think it'd be
Same
Seems
section.
silly to me. but-
Mhm.
Right, okay. Do we ever submit it? I say we just see what happens.
Yeah.
Just read it.
Can you get her done, Kat?
Yeah, it's already done. Caroline, you
Yeah,
have
to
it.
read it.
You gotta- Caroline needs to read it.
Looked at it, it's
Please.
like, good, yeah.
So the answer is push the
It's-
send button.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, it's more of a review. I really appreciate Caroline's like detail and making sure it looks okay. And then if it's all right to hit send, then we hit send. We've had a lot of contact with Patrick. He's like, are you guys gonna make an application? I'll tell you how other people are making applications. And I mean, the trust fund doesn't go away. It's just that a lot of people will be paying back into it and things, but the biggest problem is that they want to use all 202,000 right now and get it out to use and then get it back in and revolve it. But it could be a while before project money comes back to be revolved. I know they have a couple of applications that'll be like rehabs, like people are gonna rehab some units and things like that. So
But they'll probably choose those over ours anyway, in that case.
and you know what? He did encourage us to keep to make the application.
Press on, so we should.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I double checked, I definitely sent that email today, definitely haven't heard back, so, but I think I'll review it anyways and assume that it's gonna be an affirmative answer on that, so.
apartment complex,
it-
Golden's. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
if it goes back to council and they say, let's say that they say we want no income restrictions on that property, 0. And if we did get the award this year, we would have to give it back, because if they don't want any income restrictions, we'll respect that and just give the money back, and maybe we'll even have a different project that we submit instead.
Okay. All right. Move on. Apartment complex, Golden Shovel groundbreaking event. Discussion.
Caroline,
Kathy,
you want me to go
I-
ahead?
I-
Okay.
read your email, you did a great job with the vision, but the question is, do we want to have a groundbreaking when it starts. At this point, I'm still working out details. The architectural committee is meeting next week. Mary's on that, as well as a couple other people. We are tentatively set to close April 1st, but it isn't confirmed. I'm trying to get paperwork, loan paperwork, in order for them to do the first draw on the grant. University or the Minnesota Housing needs evidence that they have their first mortgage ready to go. They've got their equity ready to go, which I'd assume the bank would want that too.
Yeah.
So, I'm waiting on paperwork. So I don't know for sure a date, but I think we have plenty of time to organize even from closing, so.
It would be nice if you guys are working on the architectural, approval or whatever, if we had a rendering for the
Yeah.
groundbreaking, so people can see what we're breaking ground for.
So are we premature in this
I
discussion
think
then?
so.
Yeah, I sound like it.
I guess the question is it something we wanna do,
Oh.
assuming we have everything ready to go?
When the timing is right,
Yeah,
It's a good
absolutely.
deal, yeah.
And then Kathy, is it something you think you have time to help organize, or would you need support from Tyler and I to help with logistics and stuff?
We are
I'd
ways
rather
out.
bring it to watch. I'd like to bring it to watch and
Okay.
get
Perfect.
the watch folks and
Yeah,
we'd
that's
probably
good.
brainstorm on who we collaborated with, because this isn't like I wasn't proposing this as a community event as much as a collaborative event. Like, we had so many partners in making this happen that we can't forget that, because we want to always be in good graces with those same collaborative partners. And so the
So
groundbreaking
just
event
inviting
is
media plus partners, but not like inviting the whole city.
that's
Sounds-
later on when the building opens.
Right.
Yeah,
I
that's
have a
later on
question.
when
Go
the
ahead.
building opens up.
I have a question related to the building. On the grant for the demolition and site improvement, do you hold that money and then they draw off it, or did you give them the money?
No, they submit invoices and we reimburse them. I have to make sure that, so the way there's 3 pools of funds. I believe their title company is gonna track a lot of it, but
Yes.
for that demolition grant, I've gotta make sure it's only expended on those.
Well, see, that's the question I had, is about bidding and, to make sure you be competitive.
And the
Just
title
because-
company will watch the
Yeah, because
draws.
there's somebody that wanted to bid it locally and they never responded, but they finally did Friday that they would include it on demolition and
Oh,
excavating. I wanted to make sure they weren't just
Well,
favored
I
because
think
you
you,
already told me we won.
I think you asked me about this before.
I did, yeah.
And what? I don't know who said this, Deed? They said. Like, ask your attorney or something, and so what Deed cares about is. That it's getting spent on what they
That's-
said, but
that's
it's
another-
not so much that I have to collect procurement.
Yeah.
If it's a city bid project, I have to collect and have on file procurement. I checked into, do I have to save records that they did a
It's a local-
newspaper notice, bid process? No, they can work with people they're familiar with
Sure,
or not.
But when you're getting you're spending grant money and bidding it, you just don't go out and get your,
Well, it wasn't a requirement.
well, that's what I was asking.
No, I have to track that they expended it
Right.
appropriately. But when I dug through cause you asked it before, let me look back at it, but when it came to oversight on their procurement, that wasn't a requirement, but I can double check. I thought I looked
That's my
into it.
recall.
Yeah.
They don't,
Yeah.
they're not required to competitively bid it. And they don't have to comply with a procurement process like the city would, or another grant recipient would, because, I was surprised, I think, by that even.
Let me double check on the demolition part specifically. I know because I think I asked somebody about it, but anyways, fast forward, you are aware that the local person is bidding on it, or the.
They finally
Dancorts.
responded to him.
Dancorts, okay, cause
Yeah.
he said,
Keller did.
Keller Bourbon said, give them their emails. I said, email. I got a call from
They were
Jason
trying-
last week.
They were emailing
Yeah.
him to get in on it, and finally responded after.
Yeah, I am not gonna tell people to bid with certain people, because if something goes wrong with that
No, it's just. like-
subcontract and there's issues, I don't wanna say the city told me to, you know, so. I guess we've had, I don't know, I'm just saying, like, I totally get like wanting to work with someone you have a reputation with, you know, and you know that they're gonna do a good job, but I will look into it, so, you know.
You already have
But-
a reputation. 'cause you got-
Okay. Okay. Let's move on. Update on Barge Terminal, Army Corps partnership. It's been fun.
We all just been it's fine.
Everybody has a different opinion of what fun is.
Okay,
No,
so
that's what I knew.
Go.
I wanna talk to get input on two areas. So right now, the winter haul is stalled. The US Army Corps does not have funding right now, and there seems, the explanation we received is there's. Okay, what was the explanation?
So
Something,
the argument is that they. I mean, kind of, so they asked for appropriations for the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And they were told, well, ask your regional partners. This is, you know, the Army Corps up here, ask your regional partners if you have money, and everybody said we don't have money, and then. Somebody came back and said, no, I see $2.17 in this finished project from 10 years ago. Audit all your accounts, and we won't give you any money until that is done. So right now, our division, as well as I think probably many, if not all the divisions, don't have any funding, and they are struggling to request funding just for payroll. They don't have money to put in their boats to do dredging
Fuel.
surveys.
All even fuel, they said.
They have money for fuel. So they don't have money to pay us for the 217D agreement. Now, to kind of the continuing resolution that Congress just passed does have 217D money in it. It's the same as it was last year. It's just been forwarded on. So there is money. And the Corps is confident that this will settle out and we'll start to see this process happen again. Right? Is that where I'm at?
they're hoping things come online again.
Yes.
They don't have a timeline. So we had some internal discussions. This is very not good news in the sense that we needed the winter haul funding to help continue to fund our engineering, and we haven't actually in the current financial projections. The other bummer is that the Coners, we couldn't get a hold of Paul, so they started up their operations and then they had to quickly shut them down. So they actually have people that worked a couple days that are now, I don't know what their plan is. When Sean had asked me about it, I was like, oh, we're missing this, we were missing a letter from Paul and we were missing something else. I said, well, that's up to you, but I decided we should have just said, no, you're not allowed to start without all of this in hand. That was on me. But either case, they're kind of carrying those costs because they're employees. We would have no money to pay them right now for their employees. But that didn't come up. It was just, you know, the thought is, let's give this a couple weeks before we kind of start talking to our congressional representatives and see if they can get things moving again on our.
We heard. Yesterday, I don't even know what day it was. Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, that they felt that there was enough internal pressure that we probably didn't really need to do anything on our end.
Well, I think the Corps is gonna have the pressure.
Yeah, right, so, and so our efforts, our energy to reach out probably wasn't needed.
It's fuel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at this time, they said, don't do anything, but it's still kind of nerve wracking because they don't have a timeline, so. I'll kind of keep everyone updated. If we are not moving again in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, our next meeting, we can kind of discuss if we want
Then you
further.
get your winter halls, getting into summer hall, and they aren't gonna be able to
Yeah,
find anybody.
that was the point the Coners make is we don't know that we can
everybody-
guarantee we'll have anyone available when it's our
Yeah.
peak season. So I've told Bolton and Mink, we are waiting on information from the Coners so that they can do the final design for the barge terminal. But we've more or less said, don't do any more work on this final design because we kind of need money. Bolton and Mink should have all the permits in by the end of the week. And then that gets into the next, so anyways, I think like after the permits are in, then Bolton and Mink is gonna be kind of stalled, other than I'll be working on meetings and involving those with Brian. The other big, it was like one thing after another. The big thing is John, could you explain what the DNR wants to require for mitigation? You were at that meeting, right, Emily? Or Emily can explain it.
So I think I might layer with.
So, one of the permits that we need to pull is with respect to the endangered species that will be affected by our project. There is a permitting fee, and then they will be required to do some mitigation. And what that mitigation essentially means is that since we're taking habitat, we have to either create habitat or create acceptable accessibility to the river. So as in this summary, thank you for putting this in here, but in the summary, it sounds like the permitting fee is going to be about $65,000 to $70,000. There's actually a formula that they're saying every mussel has a value. We have 431 or 429 mussels that they found. So therefore, there's a formula and that number comes up. I just hope it isn't a good breeding season for mussels this year because, but anyway, so there's that. But, so we have, well, no,
He doesn't know for sure what the number is, but it's
Exactly.
ballpark.
it's a ballpark. These are all
I
ballpark
think they
numbers
ballpark 420.
of
That
mussels.
was the, yeah.
Only two of them are endangered.
The two species,
The
but.
mucket.
the
How
mucket
many are
mussel.
there of each of those? Yeah.
So, right now our fee is the 69,000.
Plus the cost,
Plus we have to pay to move them. So that,
which
that,
Brian will know on Thursday how much it would cost for a
Right.
diver to move.
And then it's per mussel, isn't it? Like, let's just say $15.
$15, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's probably another 30,000, whatever. So-
We're on meeting center.
Wasn't there something in there?
What do you do for a living? Oh, I move mussels.
So
If you just pay 240,000, you can just go ahead.
we can just dig them up.
Section where.
But so,
Come on, it's big, it's 250,000.
but that still means we have to create someplace.
Where do
We
they
have
go?
to,
Yeah.
well, they'll place them, right? They'll create them.
They have mussel foster homes?
But also then through the mitigation, we have to. This drives me nuts. We have to come up with ideas that will become acceptable to them. For things that create either habitat or accessibility or show that. Combinations of things. So some of the suggestions that the DNR talked about was. There's a gut across the river from Slippery's that fills in. That can essentially kind of run you upriver behind that spit of land in front of Slippery's on the other side of the river. We could dredge that open again. That would be an idea.
And again,
And
and again.
again and again.
And again,
The top of Carl's gut, the gut that we're gonna use for our barge terminal, is all silted in. We could dredge that. To create
A
flow through there, right?
It's full of trees.
All this stuff, yeah, I know, all this stuff
But that
creates habitat.
be costly.
Then the other item is, we could dredge,
Wisconsin, so.
yeah, it's Wisconsin.
We gave it Wisconsin dinner,
So we have, and all these comes with more permits and everything, right? So then the other idea, which actually is kind of palatable in the long term, is dredging the Zumbro backwater. And anybody that's been here forever,
Yeah.
it's been a topic of conversation and discussion. So as for kind of public support, that would be the biggest, coolest thing and really take the edge off. The problem is, we think it's gonna cost over $1 million to dredge that. And if we dredge it, then we're probably gonna have to bubble it or put a fountain in or something. So there's ongoing costs for that.
And probably enlarge the
The culvert. At some point, right?
Right.
So, but if we can dredge both sides to some degree, that we're creating habitat, we're creating access, we're creating opportunity for boaters. We can put a little dock in to put canoes on and all that. And we could incorporate that into our Highway 60 reroute project.
Yeah,
True.
cause I feel
Yeah.
taken out of it could be put on the
Put in.
park, because when they
Mhm.
dredged it in the sixties, they pumped it.
They pumped it right over there,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's expensive, but if we say
It'd be the most desirable.
it's the most, and we say that we will do this, we're not gonna do this tomorrow. We're gonna do this as part of this project, the Highway 60 reroute, and we all know our Highway 60 reroute project is not gonna end anytime soon.
Yeah.
You know, but what it does is it like all those things we talked about in those early design phases about creating that value of riverfront, right? So that creates value for more of the community. All I've ever heard is, well, how come there isn't a harbor fund? Isn't there a harbor fund to dredge out the harbor? I know there never was a harbor fund, but you know, whatever. I mean, I've been hearing that since I moved here. So it would have great impact and we would create the habitat, and I think it would be a done deal.
Mhm.
The other thought I had with how I phrase it, and I don't know if Brian liked this idea or not, I can't remember, but we could just say, we will create an improved aquatic habitat in the Zumbro Slough and not commit to how we would do it. Cause certainly
That's
if you
perfect, yeah.
did a feasibility study and said, all you need to do is put a floating fountain in there and do some restoration. Cause I was rereading the plan, Emily, they suggested just the fountain and restoring the edge of there in the plan. Did they also mention dredging somewhere? Cause when I reread it,
Well, I
it was
just
just.
never understand that because ducks stand in the middle of the slough and there's only their webbed foot is in water, so I don't know how a fountain functions without.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
right.
Water, so whenever I read that, I'm like, well, that's not a thing. If you restored water to that
Yeah,
slough, then I guess pump is part of it, you know. Certainly if the culvert is expanded, then that
yeah.
would deal with all that algae that builds up on that.
I was just thinking, you know, I don't know that we'd wanna commit to something without having a feasibility analysis done that said this would achieve it, but we could talk in general, being committed to that. The other thing that came up is Brian brought a couple grants out there and just try to verify with Lucas, could we still apply for grants? And he said something like, well, we wouldn't want you to be contingent on whether or not you do the project, on whether or not you get the grants. And that's when I got upset again, because I'm like,
Do anything.
it's like, I just got upset because I was saying it'd be one thing if we were this wealthy, rich for-profit corporation, but we are just barely able to pay the police department and do the
Right.
roads. And this is,
Huge.
so I think I did send him an email saying,
Bullshit.
you know,
Second.
I mean,
Yeah.
we will do it, we would commit to doing it in time as we can, but. I mean, I'm sure they're looking for more assurances, but I just.
I'm just gonna tell you guys, as the city, you could sell some pretty expensive lots along there if you clean that up.
Well,
It sounds silly, no, you know how
you
much
can
money,
only cover so much of the land,
right?
anything on that isn't
But
gonna
that-
be anything.
Also,
Except
On
with the
it,
views
but
of it.
if that road wouldn't be there, right, after the,
It's
No.
desired to be there in
Yeah.
terms of
It's not gonna
access.
be a whole lot of them.
yeah.
Shoreline overlay, don't forget that.
and
Yeah.
was this something about view of extension when Mary came down to do the Zumbro?
Oh, and she certainly walked us through this idea. They have no resources
There's
to help us
nothing
to plan it, you know.
There's no money.
In fact,
I knew that.
Mary called us and wanted to do some transportation work, kind of more research work, and we said, listen, our cup runneth over with like exploration of ideas, we really need help on some of it, not funding, and she never wrote back. But then I'll bring this up again, even though Lucas poo-pooed it, because I was angry too, that they don't want, it's like they don't want you to find resources for this work, because that might jeopardize whether you really do the work. It's like, oh, we can't do the work without the resources. So a long time ago, during the Greater Minnesota Futures process, we learned from actually Bob Edstrom. When we told Bob
Yeah.
Edstrom about our goals long-term, he got really excited. He's a planner by training. And he said, you should get to know the other side, another side of the core, which is this, what do they call it? What is it?
Hang on, I got
Continuous
it.
authority
Oh, wait, they
program.
have a human side?
Oh, yeah, this guy's great to talk to. Continuous authority program. Essentially, it means if, and you hear about this in the news, and I'm like, oh, that's when they do like a seashore restoration, the Army Corps is responsible for it. It's because they did something that hurt that, you know, that, so he said, if you can find out for sure that the Corps did something that changed a habitat, which of course, they re-engineered the Zumbro. Then there's this continuous authority program. It must identify an aquatic ecosystem restoration project potential. So again, it's planned. It's not like they pay for the project, but,
I have
Habitat
his
restoration.
contact.
Yeah,
okay, the habitat restoration must justify the dollars spent by their program.
Yeah.
For instance, an infrastructure protection habitat restoration cost benefit ratio needs to make sense. Planning assistance to states, the funds is more quickly available, so the planning assistance is more quickly available than other, I guess, programmatic resources. And he said, so was the Zumbro straightened by the Corps? If yes, modification of existing projects is an option to explore under this program. And he said, you know, you gotta be like, it cautions it's a 1 to 3 year timeline. I said, everything is. He looked at, he said, is there a water quality study with the old Zumbro corridor? Our letter of intent would need to express the city's understanding of the cost share because it's not free. So there's this other program. And even when I said, you know, that maybe that would be a kind of path forward, Lucas is like, well, unless we're all the way through that, we wouldn't want you to do that. So we have to look for the partnerships that get us there. We can't just find the money, you know?
and the problem is if Lucas is a DNR rep for water, for hydrology, right? So, and he's the one that would receive the permission. But he's the messenger,
Right.
you know, he's not,
He's trying to be helpful, and he
Yeah.
was, I think, in providing us any examples, it was helpful
yeah,
to kind of understand the.
So as a footnote, so I was working on the I-90 bridge down in La Crosse. So we had piers in the water and we had mussels down there. So we sent a guy named Davis, he lives out on
Man. Yeah, I'm like,
Mike Davis, yeah, he lives
Oh,
out
yeah.
on Narrow Gauge Road. And he was a diver,
He's a muscle diver.
yeah,
There you
he's a
go.
muscle diver, so, but it costed thousands of dollars, not millions, and it was under 100. It was, I think it's 30 or 60.
That's what they were saying, that they
Yeah.
predicted.
Yeah, to move the muscle, and it's pretty easy.
But that's understood,
yeah, I understand.
This is their argument for this large habitat access, you know, project
Mhm.
is because of the 4 acres of impact we're gonna have in our dredge operation to get into the barge terminal.
Yeah,
And so it's like, think about how recreational boaters now can't use it, and like,
they can't use it now.
and they don't use it now, so it's not even about.
we're gonna get back there.
They will.
It's not even about mussels, it's about this amount of the waterway that we're now, you know, using, occupying and altering, and then looking for another kind of equivalent
Improving?
impact, so.
It's a
those two-
working river.
Right, that's what I would think.
Okay, and Chuck wants to make a comment and you're done. Yeah.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, I can't get myself on now. You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I understand, and I was at the same meeting, do I understand that if we do nothing, go up and grind the suckers off, the fine would be 250,000. Was that correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
What we
That's a hell of
understand.
a lot less than $1 million to do something over in the slough, right?
That's what Emily's explaining. The message that Lucas was trying to deliver us is. It's
We still
confusing.
have to provide mitigation, Chuck. I think it's
Yeah.
like tit for tat. If we take, we still have to do something.
He was saying, I mean, I heard maybe we can negotiate on the fee goes away if you do this really great project that impacts the muscles. I also understood we just do a smaller, simpler, build a new trail or pitch to them, we'll do a dock, plus still pay those big fees. It's just, I was going through the city's plans, and the only other thing that we have planned for is maybe a trail along the Zumbro Slough. But that's not in the Highway 60 project right now, so.
All right, well, that's different than what I understood, but
Mhm.
thank you, DNR. I hope you're all happy with your state agency. My last comment.
So so I guess I volunteered to respond to the DNR. And I guess I'm wondering, do you wanna say, okay, we'll pay your muscles fees and try to argue the point further that we don't think this is impacting it, or come up with a smaller project? And I don't know what that would be. I mean,
I like
or do we
the,
do the Zumbro Slough, but say something more general, and this is contingent upon a feasibility study that shows this is a good idea? Like, again, the DNR, it's putting good money after bad. If someone studies it and says, this makes no sense, this is not gonna achieve water quality, you'll spend $1 million to $2 million and it's not gonna do anything. And then, I don't know, we try to say it's contingent on the city having the funds available, but I don't know, I don't know if they'll go for that, though.
well, it's unreasonable. I think that's our best bet, at least the first iteration, right?
Mhm.
And let them come back with a response.
Yeah. And like I said, Lucas is the messenger, and he was trying to present us with, possibilities that we could consider, and, he's not gonna be this decision maker on this
No.
by any means, so it'd be good to get somebody's direct response, which of course will be yelling at us probably.
No, it's another one.
John,
We have to-
one more question.
Okay,
Caroline, John, you and I and Caroline were all there. Did I not hear that we would not have to do this mitigation immediately or prior to the project? This could be a rather long-term thing?
Yes.
that's correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, Chuck, you're right there. So like we were talking about dredging the Zumbro backwater, right? I mean, that's not gonna happen before we do the terminal, but that would be our identified project to create that new habitat.
All right, second question. Where did the number come from for $1 million to dredge the slough?
I think what they did, you've
Brian
got,
gave Mound, and he took that $28 per square
Yeah.
foot number, yeah.
right now, Chuck, these are like just talking points. We're not. We recognize that dredging that is gonna be expensive. But maybe we realize we only have to dredge a part of it to make this palatable. I don't know, or maybe we realize it's not gonna work at all.
Say,
But I
Dave, you
think
know
that's-
something about what's in there and what was done in the past. What do you think about $1 million to dredge it?
Well, I
Dave?
have no idea how much it's gonna cost in today's world, because in 3 years it's doubled or whatever.
Yeah.
The first estimate was 14, now it's 28. I mean, Chuck has done this before, he said it's usually around 14.
Yeah,
Well, now all of a sudden it's 28, by the time we do it, it'll be 35. I mean, you can't project it. You should get the two bids, and like you said, there's only 2 qualified people around here that have the equipment to do it, and so.
you set the price.
I know.
Maybe we roll that in with we're dredging on the Carroll's Channel. Get a volume discount.
In
Well, that was discussed.
Lucas's very optimistic version, we could, I'm just concerned about funding. I mean, we don't have cash available to add extra costs to that project until we become profitable as a barge terminal, so.
I will say this, and I asked directly, I asked our Army Corps representatives that were there, and they were honest, they have Plan B, they're working on Plan B. So how does that affect us long-term? It's not going to. The 217D agreement with the city of Wabasha, will be in their budget and their budget ask every year. It is still gonna be the most feasible way to move sand off the islands in our
Cause
area.
it keeps going for year.
And it'll go year after year.
They just have
So-
a grand encampment they have to give.
Yeah, they have to get, so that's reassuring. It's gonna be a long time coming, but we will see this as it'll benefit the city long-term for a long time. It's just getting there.
Yeah.
So those are the two meetings that we had with respect to the terminal, right? Or do we have three?
We had multiple, I mean, again, the costs have gone up.
Yeah,
We're looking at maybe a $2.2 million cost share, but then 2.8 million cost share. But then at the meeting, we asked the Army Corps where are opportunities, could they help us get better pricing on the dredging? They definitely weren't willing to commit to adding our job to their contract. But they did give Brian Malm contacts of who is probably gonna get their job. And I think Brian Malm is gonna see if there's potential to get better pricing if we can time it when they're out on the river. I think they noted that usually they have these guys go from one job to the other in rapid succession, so there may need to be coordination with them to not send them off to the next job, so. We're gonna look at that, I guess we're right now thinking the 2.8 million is the worst case scenario, and I need to. Figure out with Mike Lubani what that looks like in terms of borrowing and things, but again, the plan would be we would take on debt and pay it back through the future. I think we talked about this at the last meeting. I know Jeff had definitely concerns about that. I feel at least assured that we're not gonna go move forward with the project till all the permits are ready. The environmental assessment is ready. I mean, we're not gonna spend beaucoup bucks without having more assurances. And I think Brian Malm wants to continue to investigate pricing on dredging and see what would be the true dredging price again ahead of moving forward. So I think we will, that seems to make sense. So I just am looking for feedback on how I might, if, is the Zumbro Slough the potentially highest impact project if we get a study that shows that it is? Or do we just kind of pitch them something smaller like, hey, we'll pay your mussel fee and, build a dock or do signage or something. I think.
They've been talking about dredging the slough ever since I've been here.
yeah.
Well, the harbor's here has to be done pretty soon. It's only 4 feet deep. I mean,
Well,
that's the city's responsibility, I think. I think it is.
Well, if we wanna have a profitable marina,
That's what I
maybe it
mean.
is, yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
rent out the marina if there's.
We have no money to dredge out the marina right now.
I know you don't
That's-
because you don't have
yeah.
a harbor fund.
Yeah.
You know, you gave-
We shouldn't have started that when we first started.
Well, anyway. Just cross your fingers.
Caroline, I think that. If, I don't know, what does everybody think, if we do something vague about the Zumbro.
I think I wrote like,
It sounded good.
perhaps city shall improve water quality in the Zumbro Slough to create new habitat for fish and macro invertebrates.
Very vague.
Over the next-
The
Sounds very
path forward will be determined after a feasibility study, which identifies the most, a cost-effective approach to meet this goal and funding and
Yeah.
operationalize.
Carolyn discussed, we don't happen to have biologists and natural resource expertise on staff, and we're gonna need them in it. Like,
Yeah,
it's
right,
not.
right. I think it sounds great. Sounds impactful, but very vague.
Well done.
I stole it.
The next steps are feasibility study, or not at all.
Well, no, the next step is once Caroline passes this, so the next step is, let me back up completely. Bolton Mink has to submit the mussel taking permit.
Okay.
We will get the true true permit cost, because that's a cost, and then concurrently, or we submit the white paper
Yeah.
or suggestions about for mitigation.
And I think it's just gonna be that statement, and I
Done.
think I will try
Yeah.
to, we brought up, like, we've just built a $500,000 dock in the Mississippi River to help people access the river. And I will try to name some of our accomplishments. The Army Corps was not really willing for us to count Robinson Lake project they're working on, because that doesn't have anything to do with the DMMP, but, Bev at the library shared all the programming that Sarah Holger is doing at the library, educating people on fish, and so I've got the topic she's delivered, so I'm gonna, if anyone can think of anything we've done to help people access the river, which it's part of our identity,
Yeah, it's city dock.
We gave
yeah,
a
city
gap,
docks, yes,
The old
yeah.
dock.
Yeah.
we gave a gap loan to the only canoe and kayak outfitter
Oh, yeah.
on the
Oh, yeah.
Mississippi
Very
River.
good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, good one. Thank you. City, yep, Eagle Center docks,
The amphitheater has a programming, so people can do
Yes.
all kind of activity and programming at the amphitheater.
The site now of the fishing program.
Fishing program.
Yeah, with the Eagle Center.
Yep. The mural faces the water.
And it has our history on the QR code there. I mean, there's a 45-minute video
Yeah,
with the waterfront history.
They're
Okay.
really only focused on natural resource recreation.
Right.
We could fix up the boat launch for emergency during the winter in front of my house. They use it all the time for emergencies access to the river.
Oh,
Fire department
Yeah.
has used it a few times this winter. It needs to be upgraded, but there's another project that we could say will provide emergency outlet to the water, to the river.
Perfect.
That's a good one,
And
actually.
fishermen, commercial fishermen use it all winter.
All winter round.
Year round.
There's another one for
River
the carp
access.
removal.
Yeah.
That's probably really good.
Oh, that's good. We will upgrade that to assist commercial carp fishing, which is an invasive species.
Yeah, because they fish out of there all winter.
Yeah.
And then these avid hunters, the duck hunters, they
Yeah.
go out and stone.
I'll need you to just send me an email on it, just so I know I got it right.
You're familiar where I'm talking about by my house there.
I know where you live.
Yeah,
but-
it's just,
slippery.
it's
Okay.
just so steep, it
Okay.
needs some work.
Is it the
Actually-
DNR
Yeah,
going?
but you'll need, no, it's
No,
city owned, it's
actually,
actually,
Tony threw a little concrete in there
Okay,
a couple years
it's
ago.
actually Church Street and it goes
yeah,
straight through.
okay, I'll talk
the
to
river.
Tony. So it's a project we would commit to doing?
Yeah, we'll just wrap it up and make it.
I know we're gonna add riprap maybe as part of a flood mitigation project along Lawrence Boulevard, but I don't know if that counts. That just,
I don't know how to improve access, it's just.
yeah,
Kind of like.
Protects shoreline erosion.
Yeah, it needs it in front of fluff salt bad.
mhm.
It does. It didn't get done on the Moyer's.
Yeah.
It's a little project, but
No,
still we can do
I know it's
that.
that fish cleaning house. I hear demand about that all the time. That could help.
We just, yeah, we can't seem
Like the
to
one
get
that city
the
has.
dollars for that.
Yeah.
Okay,
But. put it on
I
the
know
list.
that one in Lake City's always busy.
It is.
There are always some people in there cleaning fish.
And those must be nasty in there.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
It's kind of like,
Jeez.
a-
It's
it's
better
like,
that than
kind of like the recycling shed, no,
we have a
So, no.
you need somebody to go there.
Are we good with, are you?
yep, that's a
I
pretty
think we
good
got some
list.
good ideas.
Are there restroom improvements planned that are already on kind of the project list eventually? I don't-
We've got plenty on the eventually list, but no hardly any money on the, in Parks and Rec, so.
Oh.
I think you could use the outdoor recreation grant again, for some of these ideas too.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, it'd be a whole other project that we'd have to work on, but I do think there are grants out there, I came across this project about a city talking about how they dredge these lagoons. Oh, you can't see it anymore. Okay, you can't see my screen.
What
Huh.
froze it?
Well, anyways, Okay, that's still not working, weird, okay. Well anyways, I found a project just to try to get ideas that a city did to dredge some lagoons and improve aquatic, and they got a grant from Clean Water grant funding. So I think Brian sent me another one, it would just be our next big thing that we're focused on, so. So I will write the DNR with that along with everything we've already done. And do you think I should include a narrative about this isn't a utilized area by boaters or, you know, and just kind of counter
You talking about the Carls?
the Carl site, yeah?
It's so shallow, it's fishing, fishermen is it. There's no commercial, there's no recreation.
No, you
Recreational.
can't drive a boat there.
And it'll actually improve it up to that point, they can, because they can still go back in there and fish.
There's a big old storm coming.
Pretty.
It is pretty.
Tomorrow morning at 8:30, 9 o'clock was.
All right.
I was like, that early.
Rain.
So I think, that met my goals of what I needed input on with that. Thank you for your patience.
No, thank you.
Just a little.
It was an interesting week.
I've never had to control my facial expressions so much in a public meeting in my life. Because I was just sort of like this kind
Gobsmacked.
person who's now a citizen of Wabasha and a very nice guy is delivering information that is just making me so angry, but it's not his, you know what I mean? It's not, he's not.
Yeah.
It's
Glad I wasn't there.
That's right.
We're glad
John?
you
I was
were
on
there
it.
too, Jeff.
John, just a
We're
quick
all-
note,
Did
just,
you burst into laughter?
I think we were all shocked.
I think we were shocked.
I might have
Really.
swore, I don't know.
Yeah.
John,
Oh, Jeff, yeah, for sure. Jeff,
When we got to the muscle slide and they said, it's $50,000 if you move the muscles, it's $250,000 if you don't do anything, it's like saying what?
Yeah, just pay us 240,000 and go ahead and do what you want. Does that make sense for the poor muscle? No.
well, if we get enough money, we don't care about them. They're endangered, but if we can give them, yeah, exactly. That is the damn truth.
All right, let's move on.
John,
Okay.
just
I
a
thought
quick
we
Got
comment.
that covered. I think we
John?
resolved a little bit on that.
All right. Infill
John?
lot summary of tools. So is this, Kathy, is this you?
Yeah, I just want to quickly
We lost
say this
Kathy?
was,
She's there.
yeah.
Bye,
Can you,
Emily.
you can hear
Oh,
me,
thank
correct?
you.
Hold on, I gotta turn the volume back up.
Are we doing?
Okay, all right,
All right, you can hear me?
yep.
Yes.
All right, just real quickly, I know you guys have had enough meeting. To continue on with discussions with different developers. Last month we talked about Bigelow and Bill's property. There was some uncovery by the resort for some infrastructure, some water infrastructure that's already, the lines are already in place. We had a nice meeting with Nick and Mike, so I call it a homegrown infill project, introduced that to them.
Yeah.
They sort of still, our homegrown developers are still sort of looking at the infill projects. We talked about what obstacles they have in front of them, how much we want to be helpful to them, introduced tools, layering different tools, probably had over an hour discussion with them. I think what they were going to do is go back and tell us what they're interested in according to those tools. Deadlines are going to pass. We gave them the deadlines. And I think that income restrictions probably aren't on their radar. But I think the darn summary of all this is that Mike might be able to develop at the same time that Cannon Park infrastructure gets put in, and that Nick has 2 different lots that he was really interested in, and that we should take the plans and blueprints that they have at this point and double check with Wendy and with Christy from Bolton and Mink and see what the maximum capacity is at each one of those sites, because they'd like to build to capacity. If something's 2.5%, can he get, or 2.5 units, can he put 3 units on? That sort of thing, and then take these projects to the utility commission and get some utilities. Would you say about the same, Caroline, that we really we may not have to do much for them other than maybe some abatement or some land donation, just so we can trade some infrastructure costs and make the projects
So-
feasible. But it looks like we could get at least 8 units out of these lots that the folks are having in place.
So Mike owns a vacant lot across from our Cannon Park
Right.
lot,
Yeah.
Yes.
but it doesn't have, there's
Sure.
not a utility
Doesn't have-
line
right.
that goes to the lot.
Oh,
So,
it had one, but it's a self-fuel galvanized.
yeah,
Right.
so Pat Mueller is interested in addressing it and we're interested in addressing
Yeah.
it, so someone has utility access for ours. So we kind of talked about
Sure.
collaborating on getting a boring and a line there. And then the question was asked, would the city be willing to, instead of them going through and applying for all these funds and attaching income restrictions, would we be willing to, donate our Cannon Park lot plus help them pay for the utilities if we knew that we got both of those developed for housing? Nick owns a different lot over there, so that none of that scenario really assists him. So I think he's still deciding. I think I did try to communicate, like, it sounds like it's kind of money available, but it's gonna come with a headache a bit, so they're, I think, evaluating. Like when we talk to Bigelow Homes, it's like, hey, I might have to take prevailing wage if I take this money. Or, the city's gonna be more involved, so, and we'd have to prepare a grant application on their behalf and we'd need info from them. So I think they're gonna, yeah, like Kathy said, get back to us, but I think the land trade has the most opportunity and we keep grants out of it. I just don't know, that doesn't necessarily help Nick, but it would help Mike Scholing theoretically build on his lot and maybe ours if he was willing to do that. But I kind of said to be competitive for the grants, they have to kind of determine, they're both interested in building rentals. What's your gap? What are your rent rates are gonna be? Why do you need the funding? And they were like, oh, okay, so I was like, you gotta show us something on paper that says my cost to build are this, amortizes this, and I have this gap so I can keep the rents affordable. We'll need that, all that information to be competitive on the grant, so.
Yeah, and they didn't seem real interested in that part of it, so we were just, let's go really simple. What could we control? We have a piece of land and we have tax abatement. Those are kind of probably your 2 best tools.
Yeah, and then they asked, well, what about TIF? We saw the other developer get this TIF, and I was like, okay, it costs actually
Yeah.
$10,000, they had to pay 5,000, and it's so like, there's fees associated with getting one of those set up, so. I thought it was a good conversation, and the plan would be essentially. What I was seeing on the plans is 2 duplex that kind of face like back to back, so that somebody's front door would be facing the alley on one side and then the street on the other side. So it would take up the entire kind of narrow lot with a house, and I think a single level with your front door on one side of the road and the other front door there, and you wouldn't, I think you'd have some side yards, but you wouldn't have a backyard. And so I thought it would be, I've never seen anyone try to put a front door off an alley. But I haven't asked, like, I think that could be done according to code, I'm not sure, but
Why not?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so
We
that
still
was
could
kind of,
Boulevard
Look
parking and
weird.
just a nice angled sidewalk going up.
Oh, my front door is just on the back alley.
Yeah.
Come on around.
That's not worried about how they wanna design it.
Exactly.
I know what how you're designing it.
Yeah.
and that would
Where-
work.
It would.
So-
Being in the
Yes.
driveway,
Oh.
Yeah, it would.
and then plus these.
Do you have any drawings?
Below.
Yeah.
Park.
they showed us one, and they took it with it, but like I said, it's, okay, like, so this is our lot.
I can totally.
And then it's
I know.
one long building, and this is your alley, and that's your front, and then so it's like, there's maybe a front porch and a door here. And then a front door so then the duplex is like they share like a wall that's
Yeah.
the back of their house.
Mhm.
Like townhouses.
Yeah, it's like.
The pictures were
Yeah, it is, right.
I will share if it comes up, but
So they're gonna kind of go back and kind of ingest what you guys talked
Yeah.
about. That's good, and I'm glad they were here to discuss, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
good.
there's a little bit of deer in headlights because it's complicated. There's just not, there's
Not
not
something
easy,
they've done before.
easy
Right.
money, but, I just explained, like, if you guys take on income restrictions, what I'm reading is you have to income qualify all of your tenants for the
Of course
next
you do.
15 years, and then like, we definitely don't wanna do that. But I was explaining, you could go in on these workforce housing points if you can show you'll keep rents here, so, but anyways, we'll need quite a bit of information to move forward with any grant application, so.
Alright.
Yep, it's good to have these conversations. Cause I still, if we can get someone local to Wabasha interested, the other person we should talk to is maybe Mike from Cooley Way.
Mhm.
I wanna call him, so.
Those partners with Jason. Taylor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Alright,
Okay. So, we're
It's
done?
a housing.
I just
Caroline?
wanted to, may I say one more thing? I didn't want to come across. I just
Go.
don't want to come across precocious or anything. The reason the grant was prepared for the County Housing Trust Fund in advance was because it's due March 21st. So if we found out tonight that it was okay to apply, I had to get it ready. It wasn't to be precocious.
No,
So, Kathy, you did exactly what we're paying you to do.
Okay, okay.
proactive,
Yeah.
Kathy.
So thank you, and Caroline, thank you.
okay.
Chuck, are you still on the phone?
Yeah, you dropped off.
We dropped off, all right.
All right,
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
And a
Second.
first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.